Hi everyone and welcome to my Minion Necromancer guide for Season 4. In this patch, minions have been buffed to the moon and most people expect Minion Necros to be the overall strongest archetype of builds out there. You can cruise through the entire game, take down the tormented bosses, go very far in the pit, all with quite little effort by having your minion army just destroy everything for you. Now there is a caveat, and that is that the AI of the minions is not really the best, so sometimes they just don't really do what you want them to do, but they are so powerful that whenever they start attacking, everything just gets decimated. So there are many ways of playing minion necromancers, and I'm going to present you with my own version of this. This is a shadow minion build based around the shadow blight and the blighted aspect, and it will just kind of destroy everything and steamroll through the game, I think. This is definitely a really exciting minion archetype that I want to try, and we'll see how it goes. Here on the PTR, I played this a little bit with a bit of a different version than I have in the final planner after min-maxing it. And this was also a very unoptimized setup. And without really anything, you can make this work from level 1 and then go all the way throughout the entire game. And with that being said, let's get into it. So let's go over the setup here. This build is based on shadow damage, in particular the shadow mages. So they fire these shadow bolts all the time. And we also have the shadow blight passive here. So the reason to run this over, for example, Kalan's Edict is because we already cap out on attack speed on your minions relatively easily from the gear that we have. And we don't really need a lot more than that. And in this case, you can run this passive and go with the blighted aspect. And blighted is basically the biggest generic damage multiplier there is in the game. You put it on a 200 weapon, you can get up to 240% extra damage for 6 seconds after proccing the Shadow Blight key passive 10 times. So basically every 100 hits or dot ticks of any kind of shadow damage from you and your minions will activate Blighted for 6 seconds. And with enough attack speed on your minions, and with, for example, this aphotic aspect here, that also makes your skeletal warriors deal shadow damage. And then you can spam blight and the blighted corpse explosions. You actually get a lot of these shadow damage effects to proc the shadow blight passive really fast. So you can actually have this effect up nearly all the time, at least when there's enough density. Most of the damage will be done by your skeletal mages. They're just gonna go completely crazy with all this extra shadow damage. We also pick up some of these passives here. For example, there's extra shadow damage here from the passives and so on. And a bunch of other like really powerful aspects that work with those minions. So here you have the Unyielding Commander. It gives your minions extra damage and damage reduction when Army of the Dead is active. So we run that ultimate here. We try to reset it with the Reapers. You don't have to run the cooldown reset here. You can do this another way or just wait for the cooldown. But I kind of like this because it just comes back way faster. But if you want, you can play with the defenders or the skirmishers as well. And for example, some of them have faster attack speed to proc the Shadow Blight faster. So that might be a bit more of an offensive choice. But I like the frequent ultimate uses here. And also we have the Iron Golem. Iron Golem is just like a really powerful AoE powerhouse, basically. Every second time he slams, he does a shockwave, and then he just hits like half the screen or so. So it's really strong, and the Golem also does a lot of damage in this setup, especially when he's pumped up with the blighted aspect. There are a bunch of other really powerful aspects here as well. So we have extra attack speed from Frenzy Dead, we have reanimation for extra damage while your minions are alive, and minions generally don't really die that much anymore. In particular, when you have the Sacrilegious Soul Ring. So I put this one into the setup. It's not really required. It's not even necessarily like the optimal high-end choice, but it does make the setup very comfy. It just automates your raised skeletons, your corpse tendrils, your corpse explosion. We have all these skills on the bar. So it just auto-casts all this stuff. And it's just really nice and relaxed to play with this. So this is why I have this there. You can play without this. In fact, this is probably the highest DPS option, but then you have to be a lot more active, press all your buttons, and you're probably going to get few of those Shadow Blight procs and so on. So it just helps you out quite a lot, and I like it. However, if you don't do this, or if you don't have it yet, then you can go with the priest aspect here, the Blood Getters. So this is also a really nice aspect to put. So you can put it on the gloves and then move, for example, the offensive aspect to the ring. And this one allows you to boost your minions with more damage. Usually the Skeletal Priest busts them by 30%, and then you get 70% extra because that applies to you and then applies to the minions. and then you have a 51% buff, and it also heals you all the time, so that's kind of cool about it as well. Other than this ring, there's not really any other important uniques for this setup, and as I mentioned, you can play without it, but you have to be more active on your buttons. The only other unique that I put in here is the Blood Moon Breaches. So this might be a bit surprising, but the stats on it are actually really good. You have a lot of damage reduction, you have those amplified damage ranks, which is nice for extra damage done. And it just gives you a way to apply curses without really doing anything for it. Since you have so many hits on your minions, they attack so fast that whenever something actually lives for more than a second or so, they will be cursed. And this gives you then the Iron Maiden, and it gives you the Decrepify for the damage reduction and the slow. So especially in like higher end pit levels, for example, when stuff actually becomes a bit tanky against your damage, you will have the curses up, and you have both of them up on all of the enemies at all times, because this gives your minions a chance to curse. So I really like that effect, and I put it in there. But again, this is not really required. Decrepify, especially early game, you won't really need that damage reduction that much, but you want to curse somehow to get this amplified damage effect and some of the glyphs, for example. And instead of, for example, the Blood Getters aspect to heal you with the Skeletal Priests, we have this in the setup. You just permanently heal up whenever enemies die. The rest of the setup is mostly just picking up more of those extra damage passes. Most importantly, Skeletal Mage Master, we have that here. We have the Golem Mastery here. And if you can, most likely they will change it to an amulet role here. You want to put those on your amulet as well. Right now we can't do this in a planner since the patch is not out yet and we don't know actually where the passive will go. But there has been a change from PDR to live service where we will actually not get this skeletal and golem mastery ranks on all of the armor items. So instead, we might have to put it here. Good thing is also we have a Fortify in the setup. So Fortify is just extra damage reduction from the Necrotic Carapace. We can proc it from Hued Flesh and also potentially from the Reapers. If you want to have a lot of corpses, you could go for the Reaper spawn corpse attack here, but this is not really necessary. So just spamming Word of Blight and then proccing Hued Flesh usually does the trick. So effectively, you don't really have to press many things. You just kind of walk around, put a Blight here and there, and then the corpse tendrils go off, the corpse explosion goes off, the minions get summoned all the time. Whenever there's like a big fight, you press Army of the Dead, and the Golem as well. A Golem actually comes back pretty quickly, only 10 seconds cooldown. It can be reset from the Reapers, so you can actually use the Golem quite often for like an extra AoE attack. It also gives you and the Golem Unstoppable when you use it, so you have very frequent uses of Unstoppable, and it just feels very relaxed to play. And finally, here's the Paragon board. So it looks like this. We have 7 boards here with 7 glyphs and also a few of the minion legendary nodes. So the most important ones here are Cult Leader. Your minions deal a lot more damage when they have high attack speed. So there's another reason to stack attack speed. It kind of double dips here really hard. So that's really powerful. You have the Hulking with Stormcity, making our Golem much stronger. Also making it borderline unkillable. And we also have Scent of Death here. So with either 2 corpses, you get damage reduction, or with no corpses, you get extra damage done. It's kind of nice to have. And we have Flesh Eater up here. So when you consume corpses, you get extra damage done as well. And this is very easy to do thanks to the ring. It just constantly goes up, consumes corpses, and basically triggers this permanently. And the rest is basically just picking up a bunch of damage nodes, a lot of life nodes where we can, some damage reduction, and that's about it. So I try to put a good mix into this Paragon board here with our glyphs. We have the Darkness glyph for shadow damage. There's Dead Razor. This buffs your minion nodes here. There's a lot of minion damage reduction in particular on this Cult Leader board. So this is why it's there. And we have Control glyph here. So especially with, for example, the Decrepify applying a slow, or you can even like temper like some crowd control aspects like this one here. So there are various ways to like stun, slow, or whatever. You can apply the Control glyph there. We have Undaunted, we have Fortify, so this gives you extra damage reduction while fortified. We have Corporal, which might seem a bit unintuitive because it's like a shadow minion build mostly, but some of your minions still do physical damage. So in particular the Iron Golem does physical damage, and you also get extra movement speed, and it buffs the magic nodes here. So there was not really that much else to put, and I just put this glyph there. And here's Amplify, so for every like when you curse enemies, we get extra damage. And lastly, we have the Golem glyph here, which gives Golems 25% increased damage. Good news is it's quite easy to cap resistances on this setup here, so we don't even have any resistance rolls. As you can see, it all comes down from the tree. We have a lot of like these resistance nodes here that are even buffed in some cases, and then you throw in like 2 diamonds here and you're kind of chilling. In fact, you could probably even get away with only 1 diamond later on once you're like min-maxed. and just get a bit more armor from a skull, for example, and have less armor maybe on one of your items. And that also is the entire setup, so hope you enjoyed this video. As I mentioned, I'll link the planner and also like Chronix's Shadow Minion guide here in the description if you want to see his version, and the rating guide on max roll. So there are, as I said, some variations, some tweaks you can make. There's always a bit of freedom to experiment, but personally I enjoyed this setup the most. So hope you liked this one, wish you good luck in Season 4, and I'll see you guys next time.